What are you guys talking about up here?
where I'm talking about this podcast. I know the hosts. Welcome to You Do, a podcast where we get into everything queer, Asian, and identity, and get into everything that you do.
I'm your host, Vince Buendicho, and
I'm Matt Vo.
that was great. That was a
Yeah,
good
this is
yeah,
our
that was
first podcast.
yeah.
We've never done anything like this.
No, it took us 48 minutes to get to this point and actually start recording.
Yep, it took us this amount of time just to set up. But we're good. We're good. We're here. We're alive.
We're here, we're queer, we're alive. Everything is good.
um, do we want to just dive into like introducing ourselves? You can do the honors, Vince.
Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Who am I?
Who are you? Who are you? Do you know who you are?
I don't even know where to begin, but I'm originally from the Philippines and then I moved to Australia when I was 10. So it's been, and then just recently I moved to Vancouver. So I've kind of just been a very like nomadic type of person. Not that I want to be, but it just seems like I have a very airy and free spirit that kind of led me to a bunch of places. And I come from a very, very big family. So when we moved to Australia, it's kind of like all I knew, essentially, because coming from a foreign country into a new one, it was very difficult to kind of connect to a lot of people just because of obviously like the language barrier, but also just different cultures. And on top of that, all throughout high school, I was struggling with my own kind of queer identity and suppressing that a lot. And it really took a while for me to kind of come to terms um, with my own sexuality. Um, I grew up Catholic, so my family's very religious. So that was kind of um, a big thing that prevented me from actually realizing who I am as a person. But on top of that, I think my parents they tried their best to kind of just like um, provide like a really safe space, but at the same time, they're looking ahead into the future and just making sure that I'm safe. So maybe they were doing certain things that kind of like prevented me from realizing who I am as a person because they know what the world is like. They know how damaging it can be for someone who's just figuring themselves out. So they did say a lot of things that kind of like made me, I guess, not really come to terms with who I am at an early age. And I would look back at like, I guess, younger queer people and they're so like out and proud and they're so young. And I'm just like, man, I wish I had that growing up. But I mean, again, they did their best and I can't really fault them for that. So fast forward to kind of just like when I met Matt, which is in architecture school. Um, that's kind of when I kind of start to allow myself to or rather give permission to myself to figure out who I am as a person just because even though that Matt didn't say that he's, you know, he's queer or gay, it's kind of like I think I sense something.
Mm-hmm.
I sense that like you were somewhat in the
Yeah.
same position as I was, being Asian, being like
Child of
uh,
immigrants.
yeah, being like an immigrant child trying to figure themselves out into an Australian society where there's not a lot of representation for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look to like other people, like all my friends in university when I started were all quite diverse, and but where I kind of went to high school, it wasn't there wasn't a lot of diversity. It was very much like I can like count the number of
Yeah.
Asian people that was in my high school. Even in primary school. So yeah, that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. I mean, I didn't really think
Yeah.
I touched on a lot, but I guess
You
as
forgot. You forgot to
Oh,
mention that we're Logan Boys.
oh yes, a shout out
Shout
to
out
everyone.
Logan.
4207. Ew. That's yeah. So that's pretty much who I guess a quick rundown on who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so after we'll touch on after you introduce yourself on how we
Mhm.
actually met.
Sure.
But we after architecture school, did the whole like work full time and all this other stuff. And I think like everyone in COVID had a realization of like, wow, this is it for me? Is this and I guess it's such a privileged thing to do, right? I think I was very lucky during COVID just because of how my workplace reacted and allowed me to still continue working. And I know a lot of people didn't have that same opportunity slash kind of circumstance, and I really empathize with that. And so from that, though, I think what I realized is that it was kind of a wake up call for a lot of people on what they wanted to do with their own lives. And for me, I said I don't think I belong here in this time right now, and I think I need to be somewhere else to figure out who I am. So I made a decision to just move. Um, Not realizing where I was going to end up, I kind of just had the intention to move, and I ended up in Vancouver, Canada,
Mhm.
which has been a very interesting ride, and
Mhm.
we can touch on that later on. But for now, Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Again, it's like, where do we even start, you know?
Yeah.
There's so many facets to who we are as people. But I'm Matt Vo. I grew up in a Vietnamese household. I'm an only child. Again, child of immigrants. My parents are refugees from Vietnam, and they settled in Sydney, Australia, and then
Oh,
moved
really?
to Brisbane. Yeah, moved to Brisbane in the early 90s. And so that was where I was born. And our family moved around a bit, but mostly we lived in Logan. And Logan is, for those who of you who don't know, Logan is such a diverse city.
Mm,
It's south of Brisbane City, and we're sort of in between metropolitan Brisbane City and then also like the Gold Coast, which is a beach city, like
mhm.
that's well known. And I just felt like it was such a great place to be, and you're kind of balanced between this relaxed environment of the Gold Coast, but
Yeah.
also just um, close to Brisbane enough to really gain everything from a city life. Again, it is the suburbs, but I loved growing up there. And I have a huge, like, extended family, even though I am an only child, but I have so many cousins who I love, and we're so close, and they're like, my brothers and sisters. And so yeah, it was a really great upbringing. And my mom and dad worked really hard to put me in a private school. And um
Okay, private school.
I know. I
Shout out Canterbury.
Shout out Canterbury College. But, I learned so much stuff there. Like, I understand it's a huge privilege to be able to go to that school, and I just took so many things from it. And after high school, it allowed me to go to architecture school, which is where we met at QUT. And yeah, after graduation, like, I mean, during school, I always had the intention of moving overseas, and you know, the US was always on my mind. And so, as soon as I graduated, I worked an architecture job for 3 months, and basically got an email saying I got an internship in the US, and moved here in early 2019. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. And I've moved to, like, during COVID, I stayed here and went back home for a bit. And um it's been kind of a crazy journey the past almost 6 years. um but yeah, I'm really kind of grateful to be where I am right now. And I work in interior design now, and it's been a great, a great experience. And so yeah, do we want to talk about, I guess, how we met and
Yeah.
that moment, and
Oh my god. Um, I will do my perspective because it's what I
Sure.
always tell people.
Sure.
Um, so there I was walking through university campus, going to the bookshop to buy some materials for a class that we were having, and there's like a set bag that you get for each discipline. So architecture, interior design, landscape, and
Mhm.
what's the other one? Uh, product design,
Industrial?
industrial design. Yeah, yeah, very important. um,
What's the other one?
irrelevant. No, I'm kidding. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
This is our
yeah,
first year.
this is
Orientation.
exactly out of like high school. It's overwhelming. There's so many people. Especially for me, since I grew up in a very like authoritative environment where I had to be told what to do. So for me to kind of just like wander around and like be on my own was a big culture shock. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of Asian kids can kind of like attest to that. Where, well, I guess since I grew up in the Philippines, like it's harder to assimilate to a culture where you kind of need to have a lot of self confidence to navigate yourself.
Mm,
But stay in the Philippines, I had to be handheld to a lot of things just because obviously my parents have grown up differently. So they know what the world is like. So that's all they know at the time. So I can't just go out and go across the street and buy something just because I might literally get kidnapped. I could get trampled by a car. So it's like it's a different environment.
mm,
So
mm.
anyway, fast forward to university, I was like, oh my god, overwhelmed, overstimulated, maybe an like a early onset diagnosis of ADHD, but I was just like, "Oh,
Right.
go to the bookshop." I see Matthew, like, sorting out through the bags, and he just looked really confused. He was just like, "I don't know what to get," when clearly you can see, like, architecture, interior design, and so I walked up to him, and I was just like I don't know why I said, like, "Do you need help?" I was because he just looked so confused, and I was just like,
You're
"Oh,"
like,
like,
"This bitch is lost.
literally, he was
Let's
like,
save
"Oh,
let's
look,
save
yeah,
let's save this one."
let's save him." And then when I was like, "Oh, do you know what you're looking for?" It's like, "I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what to get." And I was like, "What major are you?" And he said architecture, and I was like, "You mean this bag that says architecture at the front?" And I think from then onwards, like, I don't know, there was just something that naturally drew me to like to you.
Mhm.
Um, I was also with we had like a mutual friend Heidi when
She
I
went
was
to
there.
your high school,
Yeah.
though.
No, no, she
So
went to a different she was in the same suburb as me, but we
oh,
went to
okay.
different high schools, yeah. Like,
Right.
she went to Beanley High, and then I went to
Uh-huh.
Windaroo. So, yeah,
So you did know each other before uni,
no.
or
We
no?
met
Okay.
we met at, like an orientation,
Mm, mm.
lecture, and when we both found out that we're both, from Beanley area, and we're just like, "Oh my god, public
Yeah.
school, unite."
Same. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lol, the face that you made, ew, public school. Can't relate.
No. Not
But,
at all.
yeah, so that's how we met. That's my perspective on it anyway,
Yeah.
and then I think we just saw each other, every now and then because obviously, like, we would share the same classes, but
Yeah.
then there was this one time where we did share a class, and we were supposed to be in a group together, and he went away to some
I
other
don't
group and left me behind with you know who. Do you remember this?
I really don't.
Well, Kylie.
Uni for me, uni was so, like, it was such a blur. And I mean, when you start uni, you're 17. You're like a freaking baby. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how any school kids do it. Like, I don't get it. And like, for us being um straight out of high school, and I didn't have anyone that I knew was doing architecture either,
Yeah,
um, and so, like, navigating orientation, and there's not really anyone to show you around, really. It's just, like, you kind of
you're on your own.
you have a list of things that you need to get, and, you're on your own, basically. But a lot of uni is, like, you kinda just figure it out
Figure it out.
on
Yeah.
figure it out and just try it, like, I look back at my assignments from, like, the first couple of semesters, and I'm just like, "Wow, like, how did this make it? How did I pass?" I look at my degree, I'm like, "How did I even pass? I don't know how I have an architecture degree." It's just, kinda wild to think about. But, yeah, I do remember that pivotal moment that we
Yeah.
met, and, you know, just to like, there was a cafe in the bookshop too, and
Oh,
I actually
yeah.
miss that bookshop. I would go
Yeah, it's
back.
nice.
I mean, yeah, I would go back there. Not back
I
to
Yeah.
school, but
Just to reminisce, just to, like, touch the walls
just
and
to
be like, "Oh,
yeah, I
bookshop.
remember
I
these
spent
these walls.
$200 on materials and books
Oh
in
my
here."
god. Yeah, the thing that people don't tell you is, like, how expensive architecture
Yeah.
school can be. Like, you just have to pay for your materials.
Yeah. Materials, but also, like, softwares and programs that you need to use. Um, Printing? Oh my god.
Printing, yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
$200 for a 5-minute presentation is insane. But now, like, in hindsight, I'm just like, "Wow, I really did just drop $200, for 10 A1 sheets just
Oh my god.
just to present and for the for the tutor
Yeah.
to be like, maybe try something else."
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, just wasted 200 bucks.
Uh, it was insanity, but I think university for me was a lot of fun. I know that you said it's a blur, but I really enjoyed it. Um,
Mm.
you didn't say that you didn't enjoy it, but it probably just sped up for you so quickly just because I think you may have known what you wanted to do from when you were a former child. I feel like I
Yeah.
feel like you had your eyes set on Hollywood, LA, and, um, you know
Just storytelling, creative
yeah,
directing. It's
she's an
like
icon. She's a legend.
um, I do think, like, architecture school opened my eyes to just every possibility, like, after I finished uni, I felt like I could do anything. Like, if I was passionate about surgery, like, I could well, it's definitely different,
Okay,
but
girl, relax.
I I had the, I guess, resilience to take on anything I
Yeah,
wanted to do,
it builds
and
tenacity, definitely.
yeah, and I think the way they make you think in school
Mhm.
is, like, you have to look at every it's, like, very holistic, and
Yep.
so that is design, it's, like, holistic thinking,
Yes.
and so yeah, I did feel like in this 3rd year, I was like, "I don't know if this is for me,"
Mhm.
um, but I just being child of immigrants is, again, going back to, like,
You can't give up. Yeah,
we just need to
yep,
finish something, have a safety blanket, and then be able to explore our careers.
yeah.
And looking back at that moment we met, I feel like I was just like, "I don't know what to do." That's like
Oh, wow.
I was just like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" You know? That's my life. That's my life. What am I doing?
But again, you also mentioned, right, we were so young to
Yeah.
kinda make all these very pivotal decisions in our lives. Because if I had not gone to, say, the bookshop,
Mm,
and went somewhere else with Heidi, like, the likelihood of us meeting I mean, yeah, sure, we would be running into this like, we had the same circles, but I think it was such a butterfly effect,
mm,
that, you know, if I didn't go into the bookshop that day, I would have not have met you, and we would not be sitting here kind of
mhm.
frantically trying to set this up, and, we've been talking about making this podcast for the last year, and I think maybe that's kind of like a nice way to go into, say,
Yeah.
our how we went from architecture school to our lives. Well, for you, you started earlier, you moved earlier than I did. What
Yeah.
was kind of like how did you feel? moving to another country after not living out of home
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I graduated school in, I think, July of 2018. I was uh I was working another job, and they actually, let me go, and it was like a mass moment. Like, everyone was, not everyone, but a bunch of people
Just
were
Matthew.
let go. Just me, the intern. And so I landed a 3-month job after that gig, and then I was like, I'm going to Japan with my friends for, like, it was like kind of our graduation trip.
Yeah, it was a
Like,
gift to ourselves.
it was a gift to ourselves. And so I knew prior to going to Japan that I wanted to work in the States. And so, I applied for internships while we were in Australia. And I remember getting an email when we were on the train.
Oh
I
my
think
god.
it was in Hakuba, I think, but I can't recall. I know we were on a train, and I got an email saying you've been accepted to this firm in Long Beach, California. Um, I didn't really didn't care where I wanted to go. I was like, LA, New York, San Francisco, like Boston, any kind of anywhere in the States, and the agency would help you kind of find work and find experience. And yeah, that was kind of just like, yeah, I have to do this.
Yeah,
I'm ready to do this. And when I first when I first moved here, it was just so hard. Like,
yeah,
because not living out of home, and university is not like college.
yeah.
You
You
don't
don't go to a
live.
dorm. You can, but
No, you
we're
don't
so
live on
close.
campus
Yeah.
really, and you basically go to school, hang out with your friends, spend like hours and hours late at night in the studios,
Mhm.
and then you kind of just go home and sleep and then repeat.
Yeah,
But you never really stay there. And yeah, when I moved here, it's just like finding a car, and like insurance, and like America does not have universal health care, so like figuring out all those
yeah,
health plans, and just like small things that you just don't, like, I never really experienced like in adulthood. And I was
yeah.
22. I was 22. Was I 22? No, I was 23. I was 23.
No, I don't think you were no, you were
I was
21, like
23.
21.
No, I was 23
20
turning 24. 2019. Yeah.
really?
And yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Cuz I think yeah, we graduated when we were like 23, right?
I
Well,
think
you
the math
graduated a
is
little bit
mapping.
after me. Yeah, yeah. You graduated a little bit after me, like a semester after
Yeah,
me. But, like, now I look back, now that I feel like I'm still finding life very difficult in LA, but I can I can ask for help, or I can
yeah,
reach out to mates that have gone through the same thing. And that's kind of where, you know, where, like, when I first moved here, it was just like I only really had a 6-month window
mhm.
until I had to go back, and so I was, like, trying to do
Oh,
everything. I was going to Disneyland, and, like, visiting San Francisco and San Diego, like, just trying to do so much stuff and network with people and meet new people. And then after I got, sponsorship for a work visa,
yeah,
that's when I felt a little bit more relieved to be able to just take my time and, really dive into all the creative stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, you moved in 2023?
Yep.
Wow, you're almost 2 years.
It's
You're
almost 2 years
How quick
in.
is that?
Canada, please let me stay in the country.
Yeah. Do you wanna talk about,
Um,
like, how your decision to moving
mm,
to Canada was? Like, I know you played around with, like, moving to London,
yeah,
a few pre-pandemic,
yeah,
moving to London, and I'm sure that, decision, after COVID, you know, affected that decision too.
yeah, for sure. My one of our best friends, Sarisha, shout out to Sarisha, who's currently in London. We actually had the intention to move to London together after the pandemic. Or was it before? I think it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were both just, I wouldn't say burnt out from our jobs, but we just wanted something different. So we were like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's go to London and see how it goes." And then the pandemic happened, and we're just like, "Actually, maybe let's put a pause on this." And then I had a few friends that actually moved to London, and during that time, um, I was asking them constantly, just be like, "Oh, hey, like, how's it going?" Yeah, they were not having a good time. It was not a fun time for everyone, that obviously. So that kind of deterred me a little bit away from moving there, just because of how depressing she was describing a lot of things. And so for like a year and a half or 2 years, I was still stuck in limbo, trying to working a full time job, which was um, I had just gone to a different company, and I think I was slightly losing passion a bit for design and architecture in general. Again, not really knowing what I wanted to do as well.
Just burnt out.
I
Yeah.
was just burnt out, and I was just kind of excessively trying to do anything but architecture. I was going to
Mm.
dance. I was like trying to draw as much. I was kind of in this mindset when I was at uni that you know, get like Asian mentality, Asian parenting, get the best grades, like get those sevens, blah blah blah, and do all this stuff. And I kind of forgot how to live a little bit. And I think we were talking about it years back when you kind of saw how hard I was working, but you also made a comment on how I wasn't really like living the university
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
And I
because
was
it
like,
is
wow,
so much more than books and,
exactly. Yeah.
like, being home and working on a project. It's like, we should go to talks and
Yeah.
go to conferences and go to exhibitions just to, like, get inspiration and,
Experience.
like,
Yeah.
your work is incredible, like, the quality is there, like, whenever I saw your presentation, it was just, like, absolutely beautiful and immaculate, but
Thank you.
like, for me, it's just like, oh, I need some other source of, like,
Yeah.
inspiration, like, I
Yeah.
can't just sit at my desk and, like, figure something out. I
Yeah.
just my mind doesn't work that way.
I was definitely a bookworm. Not a bookworm, no, like a I was a professional student.
You
This is
were.
how I
Yeah,
would put it.
you were. Yeah,
Like,
you really
I
were.
was when Matt mentioned, or why am I talking in third person? When you mentioned, um, it's like there's actually an
For
audience
the
here, guys.
viewers.
Yeah. Um, when you mentioned that, like, you spend hours in the studio and stuff, I would always go back home and kind of be with myself, because I know that whatever output I need to produce, I can do by myself and all this stuff. And in hindsight, during those bachelors, I definitely should have made more connections with other people. Because I think I was being complacent with making friends, trying to experience relationships, but also at the same time, we were figuring ourselves out. And then masters came around, and I was like, you know what, actually have fun this time. And so I
Mm,
did. It was great. But then after that, I was like, I actually don't know what I want to do.
mm,
I was already working, and then I went to full time after a year of that. I was like, wow, I this is not what I want.
right.
And so I met a friend. Oh, Michael. uh, he had a friend, Vivian, who is now his fiance. She's from Toronto, and she was attending one of my, like, you were already in LA at this time. She was attending a dinner that I was hosting, and then I heard her from like across the room. I was like, "Oh my god, you have an accent! Like, where are you from?" And she's like, "Toronto," and I was like, "Oh, sick! Like, where is that?"
Wow.
Yeah, cultured. I'm so cultured. And she was like, "Yeah, like, I'm here on a 2-year stint from like from Canada, like Toronto." I was like, "Oh my god, that's awesome! Like, is it easy to move over there?" And then she was like, "Yeah, I think so. Like, you can look into it." And then she kind of started asking me like what I want out of the trip or the experience. And I was like, "Well, I don't really want to live in a place where it's full on density and just city. Like, I visited New York and like Japan and stuff, and I was like, I love it visiting here, but as a place to live, I was like, I would
Mm,
be so depressed,
mhm,
just because I need a balance of." of both like nature and then like city. Um, which Brisbane was great for, but it's just there's at the time not a lot happening that I wanted to do. And I feel like I've
Mm.
done everything that I could have in Brisbane at that time. I literally ate out most week, just trying out different restaurants, whatever, which I still do, but it's a
Yeah.
different environment. But yeah, so she was like, maybe try Vancouver, see what that looks like, and I researched more into it. And with every like advertisements, they always
Mhm.
present it as this very like like pretty, like it is a pretty country and it's a pretty,
Picturesque, yeah.
yeah, but they never mention the rain.
Oh my gosh, of course, yeah,
So I did some more digging and everyone kind of like top 10 best things moving to Vancouver and top 10 worst things, and they always
yeah.
start with like how much it rains, and I was like, it doesn't, it's fine, like it's okay. And then up until I actually moved here, I was like, wow, seasonal depression is a thing.
Yeah.
It's an
It's
actual
just
thing.
it's crazy to me that, like, you moved to a city that you've never visited before.
Yes, that was also kind of wild to me. It was definitely a gamble, but it was definitely one of those situations where I just wanted a big change. I wanted to
Yeah,
challenge myself.
kind of
I mean, you kind of did the same thing, right? I mean, everyone knows about LA, but in reality, until you actually move there, you
I
don't
think
know.
I think people don't like LA when they visit because
Yeah.
they go to these, like, very touristy places, and once you live here, I think there's really, like, subliminal, like, beauty in it, and different
Yeah.
neighborhoods, and there's just, like, minor things that you just, like, it's hard to describe, really. It's like a creative energy too, and, I know you and I, we're on the same coast, we're on the West
Yeah.
Coast now, and so we
Just love
both
the same
visit each
time
other
zone.
quite often,
I know
and,
you were so nice to have sorry, it's cut you off.
yeah, yeah. No, I think, like, I visited you maybe only 2 weeks after you had moved to
Yeah.
Vancouver, and I was like, "Oh," and it was your birthday too in May,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Let's just," I don't want you to move to a new city and not know anyone and
Yeah.
spend your birthday alone or anything, so and
Yeah.
I wanted to visit Vancouver, to be honest, too, and,
Wow. Okay. So I was
yeah,
actually like the last,
you're just a bonus,
like,
you're just a
yeah,
bonus.
literally. I was like,
Yeah.
not priority. Can relate.
Can't relate,
um,
and, yeah, we've been visiting each other back and forth, and, like, I wanna talk about why we started this, and it was an idea when you had visited LA in on
yeah.
Labor Day 2023?
3. Yeah. Every
Wow!
So much has
It's
happened
taken
in
us
like,
so long
I
to
know.
start this, but, the great thing about LA is the street food, and
Yes.
initially, our idea was like, you know, we just we would go to these street vendors, we would eat tacos and quesadillas and all this amazing food, and we would just, like, sit by our car and eat it and
Yeah.
talk about our lives and how life is transitioning for us, and I was like, "This is such a great idea," like, we could start a podcast about people, like, talking to people and trying different foods in LA, and that's a way to, like, kind of highlight street vendors as well. And that started in Labor Day 2023. But, now that we're in different cities, it's a little difficult. But um, yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It has. And I'm just gonna quickly touch on how much I actually appreciated you visiting me here on my second week, but also at the same time, you were like, "What do we want to do?" I'm like, "Babes, I've only been here for like a few days.
Yeah,
I have no recommendations for
we
you."
were tourists
Um,
together.
we were definitely. I saw so much of Vancouver in the time that you visited me. And when I obviously went to LA, um, I've already been there like once with my family.
Mm.
But I, like you said, I didn't have that. I had that first impression of like, oh, I don't really like this. But then
Yeah,
when you showed me around and actually we went to all these places that you took me to, I was like, wow, I understand. There's so many things happening. There's constantly so much creative energy.
yeah,
Um, that's kind of like you definitely can make the most out of the resources around you. And yeah, when we jokingly was just like, "Oh my god, this should be a podcast when we're just eating tacos behind a van."
Yes.
No, not someone's random van. It was like
Not
your
not
car.
someone's random man, but yeah, our little car.
Yeah, and we were just like, because I don't know how it happened. We were just, I think some album just came out or
Oh my
some
gosh.
popular
Was it
trend. I
Renaissance?
mean,
No, it wasn't Renaissance.
no, no. But it was definitely something like pop related, and we just
Yeah.
talked about it, and we're like, this could be interesting. Just like not Taco Tuesday, but
I mean, Taco Tuesday is
yeah, no,
very
it's a
interesting.
thing. But
Yeah.
I was like, no, let's find. I think we have a lot to say to begin with because whenever we have our phone call conversation, it just drags on. Or like when we're
Yeah.
both in transit or when you're driving, because LA
Yeah.
crazy, you have to
Yeah,
drive
traffic.
everywhere. Um, we just
We
touch
talk about
on
our lives. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like what's happening with like the week, like uh, touching on and touching base with how we're feeling, but also if anything interesting happened or any projects that we're doing, we just
Mhm.
talk about it. But then at the same time, we also like uh, we share a lot through food, and we share a lot through just anything that we're doing. And I feel like I really, even though I've known you since uni, it was only
Mhm.
around when I moved here that I got to kind of really know you. Does
Yeah.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause we're
Like,
almost in the same trajectory and we like, I feel closer to you now
yeah,
more than ever because someone from home understands the
not the struggle, but
minute
like, yeah,
yeah, the the hustle of
yeah,
being in a different city
yeah,
and starting anew and making friends and moments of loneliness, but also just, like, moments of doubt in our careers and whatnot. So, yeah, I think moving abroad has tightened our friendship a lot.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
It's I feel like because we were also distracted by university, and then like we were so familiar with how most things worked in Brisbane. We were
Mm.
so just comfortable with where we were that we were just kind of like stuck at reminiscing. We were
Right, right, right.
just like, oh, I remember the time we went this, we did that, and it's like we didn't make any more new memories. No,
Mhm.
we did, but it wasn't
We
like
did, yeah.
um it wasn't as special as say like moving across the world with
Mhm.
your best friend and then traveling together and then doing like we went to Mexico last year.
Yeah.
Like that would have never been a possibility. I mean, I was just a plus one, and shout out to your friends for inviting me
Yes. Yes.
and for letting
Yeah.
me crash and do all
Yeah.
these amazing
And
things.
we came up with the name for this
Oh,
podcast in
yes,
Mexico, you know?
we really did.
We did, we did,
Oh my
we did.
god, were we drunk?
Mm,
Maybe.
probably. We were probably drunk, most of
Oh,
Mexico.
I okay, I think I know how it started. So
Okay.
we were drinking. I think I just gotten there and I was like waiting to be checked in, and you guys were already exploring or whatever, and you guys had like already some like cocktails on hand, and I was like, oh my god. And I think I quoted like Bridesmaids when she was gotten the lemonade and she was like, God damn it, that's fresh. And like
Oh my god, yeah.
your friend
Yeah.
your friend Kelly. Our friend
Our
Kelly.
friend Kelly.
Oh my god, Kelly in the days.
My friend.
Yeah. She like just immediately got the reference, and we had
Yeah, yeah.
whenever we would drink
Anything
like a
that's
cocktail, anything, we're just
not
like,
even
God,
drink, just
that's
eat
fresh.
anything, yeah,
Yeah.
anything that's oh gosh, yeah. I honestly I thought you were gonna talk about when we were watching Bridesmaids in the Airbnb in Mexico City, not the resort, but now that I
That's
think
how
about
it
the resort,
started.
that's,
Yeah.
like, how it actually started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the whole plane scene, do you want to touch on like why that's kind of where the you do part actually came
Yeah.
from?
I mean, I think after the "God damn it, that's fresh," like, we would start saying, like, "You too?"
Yeah.
like, to each other, and I think that we kept saying that, and that's why
Yeah.
when we went to went to Mexico City, we watched Bridesmaids and we're like,
Yeah.
we just gotta like relive this.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's
and
also just how sarcastic it is because, you can be, like, telling the most mundane story, and then if you just wanna, like, move on, you're like, you really do?" Like,
you do.
it's just like, "Wow, you just wasted 2 minutes of my time, so I'm gonna
I
speed it up." Really,
know.
you do? It's like, why are you telling me I don't know, like it's like, "Oh, I went to this, like, new cafe today." I was like, "You did?" I
You
don't know, it's
did.
just
Yeah,
something kind of silly that in this, like, society where it's so serious, I think it's kinda just nice to laugh at yourself every now and then.
I know. I know. But it's also a great way to ask people like,
Yeah,
what do you do? Like
yeah,
that's a strangers like small talk. You say, "What do you
yeah.
do?" Or on a first date, you're like, "So what do you do for a living?"
I mean, would you really say that in a first date?
Yeah. "Well, how do you
Really?
make? How much do you make?" No, I wouldn't even ask what they do. Just, "What's your figure?" You know? But
Wow,
yeah.
it's just straight to the money bags.
No, I'm kidding, of course. Not really. But, yeah, I think that's kind of where we came up with "You
Yeah,
Do," and this podcast, we wanna I know this is our first introductory podcast, and, we wanna talk about each other, but also we wanna interview people and ask people what they do and connect with artists and creatives and just all like, we're very curious people,
yeah,
and, um, we wanna dive into everything that everyone
that
does,
everyone
and
does.
so
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because I think everyone has, it's such a privilege to, like, get to know people nowadays.
It is, yeah.
I'm finding that, like, living here especially, Vancouver people tend to be tight-knit, to be very cliquey. I think I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah,
Just firsthand experience. It's kind of hard to break into a new circle. Um, but you know me, I'm always very like just open, and I mean, I'm wearing a childish,
bold.
very bold kind of like raincoat inside. So like that. If that says anything about me, I'm just really quirky.
The mustache doesn't say anything,
Yeah,
but
it's. I just I think I just like taking the piss on a lot of things, and it's taking a while for me to get to this place, but also like I don't think life should be so serious. But moving here, I've realized that like not everyone shares that same point of view. Um,
Right.
I can't be too not that I shouldn't, but for some reason I had to restrain it a little bit.
Mm,
Um, just because people are not willing to kind of what do you call it? Like overshare?
right,
I'm
right.
quite
They're a little bit
nosy.
reserved,
They're a bit
right.
reserved, yeah, it takes a while to kind of for the walls to come down, but I
Mm.
don't know, in Australia, it's so easy to just befriend someone from a cafe and you kinda just, like, by the end of, say, sitting down for, like, an hour, you're, like, besties.
Everyone is so friendly,
Yeah.
like
I'm not
yeah.
saying that Vancouver people are not friendly, it's more just it's a different, kind of
It's a
relationship.
different level of approachability,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
And it's also, like, it's winter, so I can't expect everyone to be like, "Good morning," you know?
Yeah, everyone's, like, in their little jackets.
It's quite
Just
literally -2 outside, so it's like
oh, wow. Yeah.
people are literally trying to survive.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah. I mean, I I wanna maybe segue into we'll as we go on with further episodes, we're gonna introduce a like how do you do segment at the
yeah.
beginning of every episode, and we talk about how we're feeling or how our week was. So, Vince, like, how do you do this week, or
Going
how
on
you
to
doing?
yeah, I don't think we can trademark that. It's how am I doing? This week started off, I think
Or as Wendy Williams would
very
say,
yeah.
"How
How you
hey,
doing? Oh,
yeah,
this
how you
yeah.
doing?"
It's like
So
this start of the week kind of was quite sad for me. Um, I had recently just gone through a breakup, so it's kind of been a month and a few weeks. So I'm
Mm.
still in the processing stage, or rather like healing stage.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this week was kind of hard. Um, Maybe it's because it's getting colder. Want
Yeah.
just someone to cuddle me. um,
Do you hear
but
that, Vancouver?
yeah, literally,
Come come cuddle this boy.
cuddle me. um, so it's in the, I think we discussed on another call how
Yeah.
the downtime is when I'm really in my own thoughts and just
In
feeling,
between moments.
yeah, the in between moments, like
Yeah.
when I'm at work or when I'm doing something else, like at the gym or whatever. It's obviously easy to distract yourself from facing your emotions. But when I'm in transit, when I'm like sitting down or when I'm just having downtime, that's when the real work actually happens. But I can't do it all at once. It's kind of just like, because I spiral. I like have to think about like the what ifs. And I think throughout the week, at the start of the week was very hard, but now I'm like, okay, like I've reconciled with a lot of things. But I also allowed myself to feel these emotions. Just because if I suppress them, I'm gonna have to deal with it another time, and I'd rather deal with it now and just try to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I've been feeling this week, and um, it's up and down. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's never gonna be consistent. Like,
yeah,
I think that's a healthy way to look at it, and
yeah,
I'm glad you're in the process of healing, and I know we talk about it,
yeah,
a lot, and,
yeah.
um what?
Not you're like a lot. Like, can we stop?
Can we talk about me now?
Yeah, literally. It's like sorry.
All the stuff that I'm going through?
Yeah, maybe in the next episode.
I know, I'll spend a whole hour talking about my feelings.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I mean, for me this week, I it's my 2nd week of therapy. Like, I, started therapy again, and, yeah, I don't know, every time I go into a session, it's he asked me how I'm feeling, I'm like, "I feel good," like, nothing is really like, I started therapy just to get in a good mental state, but I don't really know, like, I guess, where if there's really any issues. It's just, like, we're kind of processing a lot of things that maybe happen in early childhood or things at work, but, um, my therapist asked me this week, like, "What does self-motivation look like to you?" And it just kept me thinking because 'cause I'm someone who I feel like I already have, like, such self-motivation, like, I don't like to sit still and do
mhm,
nothing. I'm like, I wanna go to a coffee shop or read a book or clean or see a museum or connect with a friend or something, but it's never maybe this is the total opposite of the way that you're processing healing, where I'm just, like, distracting myself maybe with doing things, and I'm not giving myself giving my brain to really sit in my thoughts
yeah,
because I don't wanna face it. But I didn't even know what those thoughts are, you know? And, so that's kind of where maybe my therapist can help me and just, deconstruct all these
yeah.
feelings, but self-motivation, I feel like I'm really self-motivated. Like, you know me, when we travel, it's like I wanna do stuff, like, I don't wanna I it's never a, like, lie at the beach sort of thing for me. I'm like, I'll go to this antique shop or I just love doing stuff.
Oh my god,
I never
I
sit
love a
still.
like a Victorian chair.
Yeah, I love a Victorian chair.
Yeah,
And, yeah, I mean, this week was, like, very creatively, fulfilling. I connected with a lot of creatives and with work and outside of work too, and, um, at this time of recording, the Los Angeles fires was happening last
yeah,
week, and, it's been really sad to just see the news and hear about, family members who have lost their homes and, um, I tried to do some volunteering to help out and seek, like, community, and it's beautiful
yeah.
to see LA community come together, and um, it definitely takes time just to like not feel so crap about all of the
Yeah.
natural disasters that are happening, um, and just if there are opportunities to help out, then I'll raise my hand and see where I can help. And so yeah, this week has been an interest. Again, it's up and down like you said,
Yeah.
but mostly positive, mostly
Yeah.
positive, and the sun helps.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. No, it's so
Not to rub
true.
it in your face, but
No,
yeah,
no,
the
no,
sun.
no. It's fine because it's actually been sunny here, and I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why I've also my mood has been like
Hence
hence the
the
raincoat.
hence the bright raincoat.
Literally.
Yeah.
I yeah. Also, shout out to Gorman. But yeah,
Gorman?
no.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Gorman. Of course it is.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, no, I think you said it correctly. I think it's just finding those moments to um kind of reconnect with yourself with however you need to reconnect with yourself, and then not letting external things affect um how you feel, which is hard. But like the more, and also kudos to you and like amazing kind of work in volunteering and all this stuff, because like it just shows how much you actually care about other people as well, and just like you took time out of your own hands or of your own schedule to just be with the community and like help as much as you can, which is like awesome. And I think LA is like, if anything, there's like, it's a community based city. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's
There's
so
just
many
so
different
many
sub,
people.
yeah, there's so many like
Yeah.
subcultures, and just like everyone is so, I was so surprised at how nice everyone was.
Yeah.
Like genuinely surprised. Obviously
'Cause
there's,
there's space,
yeah,
there's light.
it that's such a big thing. Like
Yeah.
sun. Oh. Um but yeah, it's been a very good week.
Yeah.
Um the sun is out. It's amazing. Like
Yeah, can't complain. Really,
you
we can't
really
complain.
can't. And that's the thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
perspective is such a big thing.
And,
Um
as we go through this podcast, it'll change every episode how we're feeling, and, um, another segment I do wanna also introduce to everyone is
oh,
the "you do or you
or you
don't."
don't.
So, it's where we both pick one thing, right? And we kinda debate about it and talk if you do or you don't. And when we have guests too, like, we want them to pick something in society, in culture, and you say you do or you don't. So, Vince, what is this week's you do or you don't?
So this week's you do, you don't. Do you wear sweatpants at a creative environment slash office, or you don't? I'm gonna start because this was a firsthand experience where I put on a very curated look for
That's a bit much, but okay.
anyway, curated look for, just to show up in the office. Um and I was like, you know what? This is great. This is a good outfit. Like, it's showing that I can color coordinate and, still be very casual and be professional. And I have these quote unquote sweatpants. Okay, fine, whatever. They're sweatpants, but they,
No need the quotes, no need the air quotes. It's a straight up
like,
sweatpants.
okay, sure, whatever. I rock up to work, and immediately my our HR was there, uh, which I was like, oh, I didn't realize she was here. So I said hi, and then the first thing she did to me was literally look at me up and down, and I was like, that was weird. So I I was like, wow, I was just really checking out my outfit. I was like, you can ask for where I got everything from later. Um, so I put all my stuff put all
She
my
was
stuff away.
she was admiring.
She really was. She was just like, damn. I put my stuff away, and then I can still feel the presence of her eyes gazing on me as I walked past her to the kitchen. And when
She's
I
like, "I
walked
gotta
back,
say something. I gotta say something."
literally, when I walked back to my desk, she kind of pulled me aside. She's like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." She was like, "Oh, how's your summer been going?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing. I did all these things, blah blah blah." Like I waffled on for like a good 15 minutes until she cuts me off. And she was like, "Actually, the reason why I called you is because I think you're wearing sweatpants and I know
She's
we're a
I love
casual
that she
office."
says, I think you were."
I told you, see, they're deceiving. From far away, they look like slacks.
Mhm.
Mm. And she was like, "Yeah, I know that we're a casual office, but I think maybe don't wear sweatpants like the next time around." And I was like,
Wow.
wow, this is the first time that someone's ever mentioned anything about what I'm wearing and not in a
Right.
positive way.
You like your ego could not take it.
I was
You're
like,
like,
oh my God.
can you just repeat
Yeah, I was like,
what?
what? Like, I'm sorry.
Are you
I'm
talking
sorry,
to
what?
me?
Yeah. I was like, so yeah, that was kind of an interesting um experience. Just because I've worn these pants so many times in the office and I've also worn them in Australia and no one's ever said
Mhm.
anything. So I
Yeah.
was like, whatever, they're just pants. And my argument is that like I was still able to do my job. Understandably, I didn't have any clients
Yeah.
coming in that day. And
Yeah.
also, if anything, if I'm on a meeting, I'm not like showing them what I'm wearing.
I think it's a standard thing.
I
So my answer is you don't. I think sorry.
think we
I
should disagree. No, go on.
I think silhouette, like, in pants is so important, and fabric, obviously.
Yeah.
I think maybe if they were, like, linen or loose fitted pants, that's fine. I think when it comes to sweatpants, it's the way that, like, the pants, like, cuff at the end, which reads as, like, activewear,
Mhm.
and it's a you don't for me.
Well,
Just saying.
we love that for you.
Yeah,
I actually have stopped wearing those sweatpants to work just because I'm traumatized.
because like, I know back then you would wear it to, like, dance, and I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
would
it was
wear it
a
to
very
dance and whatnot.
multi-purpose pair of pants.
Yeah. I think it's just, like, the level of standard, like,
Just
in the
dip for me.
office. Yeah, I don't like, she's probably like, I don't want this catching on." Like, the episode
True.
of The Office or something.
Yeah,
It's like, "I don't want this catching on."
I get
So,
it. But we're in a creative
whatever.
environment. Like,
Yeah, I feel like
uh,
it should yeah.
yeah.
I
Like, I
feel like you
mean,
could be a little bit more, like, free flow with what you're wearing in the
yeah.
office, but then sweatpants is, like, maybe
I was so
a
petty about
little
it though
too
that the
free.
night, yeah. I'm a free spirit. Um, yeah, I was very petty about it the next day because I was like, all right, let me whip up something that's like
Let me give you
a
your best
freaking,
fit.
yeah, like a freaking head turner situation. It really wasn't. But I just wore like some nice slacks and like I think I wore a suit that day, like a casual suit. And then everyone thought I was going for an interview. They were like, "Oh,
Oh
where are you
my god.
going?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, I really."
Did you just quit? Are you
Yeah,
interviewing for
literally.
another firm? Oh my god.
But it was interesting because I was like, that was somewhat of an indication of how much I allowed myself to be free in the office, just because of how people reacted to when I actually wore business
Proper
attire or
pants.
proper. And people really did notice that that it did something. But yeah, I think to an extent I do agree with the you don't, but I think my pride is too is
Yeah,
too high for me to say completely agree with what you're saying. But I hear you.
great.
It's like, all right, moving on.
Moving on. So I will say my you do or you don't. Um,
Oh yeah.
I changed I changed mine actually.
Okay.
My you do or you don't. So I've been sort of traveling recently and like spent 6 weeks in Asia and came back. And my big thing is like you do or you don't take off your shoes on the airplane.
Ooh.
I I mean, I saw it, with my own with my own eyes. Sorry, not my hands.
Just what is
We're just
this?
talking about like feet and hands and shoes. I'm getting confused. But yeah, you do or you don't. What do you think? Shoes on or off on the plane?
What about if you're wearing slides? Like when you say
That
like
Yeah.
off, as in like you're like resting it on
Like
someone's.
you're walking
Oh
around the
no,
plane with your shoes off. Like people go
no,
to the bathroom with their shoes
you
off.
don't.
Like,
You really don't. I take
yeah.
my shoes off when I'm sat, like because
I know. Yeah.
just because you know your feet expand when you're like at high pressure when you're like up there. So
Yeah.
I have to take my shoes off because they're like I feel like they're getting constricted. So I take them off when I'm like just sitting down. But when I go to the toilet and walk around,
Shoes on.
definitely shoes on.
Yeah.
Because like
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I walk
There's people
past,
that do that. There's people that walk around
yeah,
barefoot.
it's
That
disgusting.
I just
Especially the ones that like put their okay. So I just came back from London, and lol, just casually just dropped that in.
yeah.
Um, and I saw I think it was like behind the barrier where it becomes like premium economy, business, whatever. And I had to go use the toilet, and then I saw this family, and the dad's bare feet was touching the wall, like resting on it, and I was like, okay. And he was just chilling there, like with his feet up, and I was
Ay,
like,
ay, ay.
this is why I
Just
don't touch anything anymore.
just start spraying his foot.
I was like asleep, and it's just you just hear spritz.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I'm like, the plane, being in a plane is such an interesting experience. Like people
Yeah.
forget just etiquette and manners altogether.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's
But
a zoo.
okay, so you don't. You
You
don't
really
take
don't.
your shoes off
No.
walking around the plane, but
Yeah.
you can. It's an exception if you just
It's an
take it off
exception.
right
Yeah. I
in
feel
front
like
of
we need
you.
like a middle one where you're like, you do, you don't, or you do in the middle. No.
You
We'll
can
workshop. We'll
sometimes
workshop.
we'll workshop it. We'll
Sometimes.
workshop it on on the next
You do,
episode.
but with less O's.
You do. You do.
You don't. It's like you just, yeah. It's like I
Yeah,
kind of agree with you, but I don't.
you, just you.
Yeah, just you.
You do
Yeah.
you.
You really do. You just do you. You know what? If you want to put your feet up, do it.
Uh,
If you want to like
don't.
sit.
No. On that note, I do want to say like thank you everyone for like tuning on our first episode. If you've made it this far, like well done, well
Yes.
done. You just you've made it. You've made it.
You made
You've
it.
made out. You've made out like you've made it.
Yeah.
You've made it to the end. We're so happy, that you listened to our first episode, and we're so grateful that you did tune in. We're so excited to just like
Yeah.
get into even more topics about like everything with our identity, and we want to learn about your lives too. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you everyone.
Yeah. I really have nothing else to say, but also just, eternal gratitude to people that have stayed um, and listened to us just chat and just,
Ramble.
yeah. Um, and it's going to be so exciting to connect with everyone,
Yeah.
and also hear your how everyone is doing, because I think
Yes.
it's not said enough. I think we have the surface level of like, yeah, I'm good, but then how do you really feel?
How do you really feel?
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so
thank you everyone. See you in the next episode.
bye.
Bye.